The name SEAL Team 6 officially disappeared in 1987. The unit behind it did not. On Pentagon paperwork, its successor carries a bland administrative title, the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU for short, and it remains one of America's most secretive commands. It killed the world's most wanted terrorist in under 40 minutes. And according to a major New York Times investigation published in 2025, a DEVGRU mission in North Korea reportedly killed 2 or 3 apparent civilian shellfish divers, while the administration allegedly failed to disclose the operation to key congressional leaders. The first operation is established history. The second remains an unconfirmed but deeply serious allegation, an allegation the U.S. government has not officially acknowledged. This is the story of how a failed rescue in the Iranian desert gave birth to the U.S. Navy's most secretive command, and how that command has spent more than 4 decades earning both admiration and serious scrutiny. The story starts in the same place Delta Forces does. Operation Eagle Claw, the disastrous April 1980 attempt to rescue American hostages held in Tehran, which ended with a helicopter collision at Desert 1 and 8 American dead. During the crisis, a Navy officer named Richard Marcinko had already been serving on a Joint Chiefs of Staff task force, nicknamed the Terrorist Action Team, working on options to free the hostages. After Desert 1 exposed how unprepared the U.S. military was for this kind of mission, the Navy decided it needed its own permanent, full-time maritime counterterrorism unit, separate from the Army's Delta Force. Marcinko was handed the job of designing and building it, and, according to his own later account, given roughly 6 months to make the unit operational or see the whole project cancelled. Marcinko was not a stranger to this kind of work. He had enlisted in the Navy in 1958, served 2 combat tours in Vietnam commanding a SEAL platoon, and came home with a Silver Star, 4 Bronze Stars with Valor Devices, 2 Navy Commendation Medals, and a Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry. With only a few months to build something from nothing, he personally interviewed and handpicked founding members from across the SEAL and underwater demolition team community. At the time, the Navy had exactly 2 SEAL teams in existence, 1 and 2. Marcinko named his new unit SEAL Team 6 anyway, reportedly hoping Soviet intelligence analysts would conclude the United States had a far larger special operations force than it actually did. The unit was formally commissioned in November of 1980 and, after an intense workup period, was declared mission-ready roughly 6 months later. It started small, around 75 operators organized into 2 assault squadrons, named for their insignia colors, blue and gold. Blue Squadron, flying an unofficial Jolly Roger pirate flag, developed a reputation for aggression bordering on recklessness. Gold Squadron leaned into an identity closer to knights or crusaders. From the beginning, the unit reportedly operated with resources most conventional Navy commands could only dream of, though the exact scale of that budget has never been made public. Marcinko commanded the unit for 3 years, an unusually long tenure by the Navy's own standards at the time, before leaving in the summer of 1983. He did not fade quietly into retirement. In 1984, he formed a separate unit called Red Cell, tasked with testing security at American military installations by attempting to breach them, and later wrote a best-selling memoir about his career. In 1990, he was convicted of military contract fraud and served 15 months in prison, a stark postscript for the man who built America's premier maritime counterterrorism force. Command passed to Robert Gormley and later Thomas Murphy, and in 1987, the Navy replaced SEAL Team 6 with the Naval Special Warfare Development Group, DEVGRU, as its direct successor. The reasons behind the reorganization are still debated among historians of the unit, But this was not simply a cosmetic change of cover name. SEAL Team 6 was formally dissolved as an organization, even though its counterterrorism mission and much of its institutional culture continued under the new command. And the public nickname SEAL Team 6 never went away. Over the following decades, the unit's structure grew well beyond its original two squadrons. Red and Silver Assault Squadrons were added later, alongside Black Squadron, which began life as the unit's dedicated sniper element and gradually evolved into its intelligence, reconnaissance, and surveillance arm. Public reporting has described women serving within Black Squadron in intelligence and surveillance roles, while the unit's SEAL assault elements have historically remained all male. Gray Squadron, nicknamed the Vikings, handles specialized mobility, from high-speed boats to other unconventional means of infiltration. According to a Government Accountability Office report on Special Operations Forces, DEVGRU had 1,787 authorized positions in the 2014 fiscal year, split between roughly 1,342 military personnel and 445 civilians. That figure describes the entire organization, support staff included, separate public estimates of the actual assault operators. The people who kick in doors put that number closer to 300. Getting into the unit's assault squadrons is deliberately difficult to describe with precision because so much of the process is classified. Candidates for those squadrons are generally experienced SEALs, often drawn from the regular SEAL teams or SEAL delivery vehicle teams, who must already have completed years of prior deployments before they can even apply. The wider organization also recruits explosive ordnance disposal technicians, boat crews, intelligence specialists, and communications personnel, but these support professionals go through separate selection and assignment paths rather than the assault pipeline. Those who pass an initial round of physical and psychological screening move into a training course known as Green Team, historically described by former members and older public accounts as lasting somewhere between 6 and 8 months. Attrition figures vary wildly between sources and eras. One account describes roughly half of a 20-man class completing the course, while a former operator recalled a class where only 2 out of 16 applicants were ultimately accepted. What every account agrees on is that Green Team tests judgment and composure under stress at least as much as raw physical ability, using live ammunition, role-played hostage scenarios, and deliberately corrupted intelligence to see who adapts and who breaks. Passing Green Team only earns an operator a place in the unit. The missions decide whether that unit becomes a legend or a scandal. Once operational, DEVGRU's missions read like a timeline of the post-Vietnam American military. The unit deployed during the 1983 invasion of Grenada barely 3 years after its founding, and through the mid-1980s it was kept on standby for a string of aviation hijackings that dominated the news, including the 1985 hijacking of TWA Flight 847 and the seizure of the cruise ship Achille Lauro, both crises that tested how quickly a maritime counterterrorism unit could actually be moved into position. The unit operated throughout the Gulf War and the chaos of Somalia in the early 1990s. In March of 2002, during Operation Anaconda in Afghanistan, DEVGRU operators fought alongside Delta Force and conventional troops in the battle that would become known as Roberts Ridge, named for Petty Officer Neil Roberts, who fell from a helicopter under fire. The desperate attempt to recover him became one of the bloodiest single engagements of the early Afghan war. In April of 2009, when Somali pirates seized the cargo ship Maersk Alabama and held Captain Richard Phillips hostage on a drifting lifeboat, 3 DEVGRU snipers aboard the destroyer USS Bainbridge fired simultaneously and killed all 3 of his captors in a single volley, ending the standoff without harming the hostage. On the night of May 1st into May 2nd, 2011, Red Squadron carried out Operation Neptune Spear, the raid on a compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan, that ended with the death of Osama bin Laden. Public accounts generally describe 23 SEALs taking part, accompanied by an interpreter and a combat dog, though many operational details remain classified. Every account agrees the entire assault, from landing to liftoff, lasted less than 40 minutes. 8 months later, in January of 2012, operators parachuted into Somalia at night to rescue American aid worker Jessica Buchanan and her Danish colleague Paul Hagen Thisted. Not every mission ended in a clean success, and the unit's history includes moments its own community would rather forget. In September of 2010, during a rescue attempt for kidnapped British aid worker Linda Norgrove in Afghanistan, a grenade thrown by one of her own rescuers killed her. It was initially reported that a captor's suicide vest was responsible. A later joint American and British investigation confirmed the truth, and several SEALs were disciplined for failing to immediately report what had happened. In 2017, Army Green Beret Logan Melgar was strangled to death during a planned hazing assault on a base in Mali. 2 DEVGRU members and 2 Marine raiders were charged, and all 4 were eventually convicted or pleaded guilty to offenses connected to his death. That same year, a 2-year investigation by the news outlet The Intercept, built on interviews with numerous current and former members, alleged a pattern of abuses within the unit, including conduct some members themselves described as war crimes, along with claims that commanding officers had tolerated and covered up misconduct. Then came one of the most disturbing allegations ever publicly connected to the unit. In September of 2025, the New York Times reported on a previously undisclosed operation carried out in North Korea in early 2019, said to have been personally approved by President Trump during a sensitive period of nuclear diplomacy with Pyongyang. The objective was reportedly to plant an electronic listening device capable of intercepting communications from Kim Jong-un. According to the Times sources, a SEAL team deployed from a submarine encountered a small boat near their landing site, believed they had been compromised, and opened fire, killing everyone aboard. The mission was aborted immediately. According to the Times sources, when the SEALs examined the boat afterward, they found no weapons or uniforms and concluded the dead appeared to be civilian shellfish divers. The administration reportedly did not inform key congressional leaders of the operation, a lack of notification that may have violated federal law, and the mission remained secret for more than 6 years and has still not been officially confirmed. The Pentagon has not officially acknowledged the operation, and Trump himself has said he has no knowledge of it. Behind the headlines and the classified files are the operators themselves, many of whom have spent years afterward processing what the job cost them. One of the community's heaviest single losses came in August of 2011, when a helicopter carrying American and Afghan forces was shot down in Wardak province, killing 30 Americans, including 15 DEVGRU operators from Gold Squadron, 2 SEALs from another Navy unit, and 5 Naval Special Warfare Support personnel. The 15 Gold Squadron operators were not members of the Red Squadron team that had killed bin Laden 3 months earlier, a distinction that has often been lost in public retellings. In the years since, a number of former operators have gone public about struggling afterward with post-traumatic stress and survivor's guilt, describing the same discipline that got them through selection as something they eventually had to apply to rebuilding their lives at home. None of that makes the headline missions any less real. It simply means the story of this unit was never only about the 40 minutes in Abbottabad. So, what is DEVGRU once the acronyms and cover names are stripped away? It is the same paradox that defines every Tier 1 special mission unit. A force capable of ending a hostage crisis in a single, silent volley, staffed by people whose own accounts describe the psychological cost of that precision, operating under a level of secrecy so complete that the government rarely confirms its role in specific operations. Its greatest triumph, the killing of bin Laden, took less time to execute than it takes to watch this video. Its most disturbing recent controversy, the reported mission in North Korea, may have lasted less than a minute, yet remained hidden from public view for years. Between those two extremes sits 4.5 decades of missions the world will likely never fully know about. Which story from this video caught you most off guard? The deception behind the name SEAL Team 6 or the 2025 North Korea revelation? Tell us in the comments which unit's history we should cover next, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most secretive military and intelligence organizations.